Good morning, folks. Welcome back to Dad's shop out here. It's getting to be springtime outside, and pretty soon we're going to be doing some different videos. Maybe get the outboard tank back out, get some of other antique engines out and do some videos with them. But I've still got a couple more lantern projects that I want to get done before the weather gets nice outside. So today I grabbed this Coleman quick light. It's a 427 model with the external pump. It's, I believe it was March of 1927 was when this was built. And I've had it running before with a Amish style fuel cap because this pump doesn't work and I can't get the pump out of the fount. Well, Dad built a lantern vise. It was in our last video, and we're going to try clamping it in the vise and try a little harder today to get that pump out of there so that we can get this lantern working the way it should, so you don't have to use a separate fuel cap that you can air up with the tire pump. So let's going to start out by clamping it in the lantern vise that Dad built. Oh, come on. Tighten it down tight enough that it squeezes that fount good so that it can't move around, and then we can clamp it down with this vice grip that attaches to the welding table. Now that should have it good and strong so that we can try to get this out of here. We'll get in here a little closer, show you what I'm dealing with. The pump goes down, it's got a big nut right there and it threads into the fount. I've already been soaking it the last couple days with some penetrating oil, so hopefully that's helped out a little bit. So we're going to see if we can get a big wrench on there and get that to break loose or not. Alright, I went over, dug around in the cupboard and found a wrench. It's a 1-inch wrench. I actually think I'm going to go ahead and take the top off and the glass out of here before I start banging around on this. It doesn't have the correct chimney for it, but it's got a good glass, so I'll throw that over there on the floor with the ones from last week. Alright, let's see if just by having it clamped in there, I should go ahead and pull that out too and get it out of the way. Just by having it clamped in there, if I can get it broke loose, or if not, I might have to get a hammer and try to tap on this wrench a little bit, get it to snap loose. I want to make sure the wrench is seated all the way down flat because I don't want to mess up the nut part of it. There it goes, it's breaking loose. We tried it once before just with me holding the wrench and Dad holding the lantern, but obviously Dad can't hold the lantern as tight as this vise can. Come on. everything. The nut on this looks really good. Some of them you can see where people have had adjustable wrenches or channel locks or whatever on them trying to get them apart, but this one looks really good. So I'm guessing this may be the first time since 1927 that this has ever been taken apart. You see lots of them that are all chewed up around there from people trying to get them apart in the past. And look at that. I didn't even know exactly what to expect when that came out of there. But it does have a tube comes off the bottom, and the air that you pump in there comes back up so that the air is coming in above the fuel level in there. Alright, I got that out of there. I don't know what I was expecting it to have when I got it out, but I really thought there'd be some way to take the bottom end of it apart to get to the check valve, but there does not appear to be any way that that comes apart on the bottom half. I don't know if I can, if you can see down in there, if I can shine my flashlight in there at all. No, all you see is darkness, but I wonder if I can get the put this in the vise and get the check valve out of it from the top side. Well, I don't see any way to get that apart, but there is a little plug right there. So I'm gonna get a socket that'll fit on that and see if I can get that little plug out of there. Well, I clamped that in the vise. That nut, I don't know if you can really tell on here, but it's super thin on that little plug. A socket won't go on it well. I found a 1/4 inch wrench that I'm going to put on there, but it seems pretty tight, so I think I'm going to use our little soldering torch and heat it up a little bit, so hopefully I can get that broke loose and pulled out of there, and see if maybe the check ball and stuff is underneath of there. I can get it broke loose and cleaned out. Even after heating it up, that plug does not want to move at all. But when I was heating it, I heard some crackling and popping, like stuff was softening up in there. So I think I'm going to try to gently heat the whole thing up and spray some more carb cleaner through it, and maybe try to blow a little pressurized air through it and see if I can just, by heating it up, get it to break loose the stuff that's in there. The worst part is there's not even any good way to try to blow air backwards through there, because the end of that air tube's all crimped down and you can't really get at the end of it to try to blow air backwards. But I'll turn the camera back on when I got some news to tell you. Alright, I heated that a little more, I tapped on it, I took a piece of wire and cleaned down as far as I could down that air tube that comes back up the side, and I blew a little air through it just with my mouth, and I could hear a little bit hissing through there. So I'm gonna put some more brake cleaner in there, and then I've got a regulator here so that I can regulate the amount of pressure that I'm trying to put in there. I'm going to use one of my Amish style fuel caps and just set it down on there and hold it tightly so that the seal inside of there presses up against that, and see if I can blow a little bit of air through there. I'm going to kind of lean my head back a little bit so that I don't get brake parts cleaner sprayed on me if it does come loose. I don't know if the camera can see it, but there is a little bit of air passing through there, and I see some bubbles coming out. So that's better than it was before. We're making progress. Not seeing anything more coming through there. I'm gonna maybe use a little more heat on it, tap on it a little bit more, and run that wire that I got down through there a couple more times. See if we can get anywhere with it. The wire that I've got is just a bristle out of the wire brush because I had to have such a tiny little wire to fit in there. So I cleaned out as far down in there as that'll reach. And I feel it hitting some resistance. Oh, there, I just broke my wire.
Oh, it's in there plugging it up.
No, it came out.
Okay.
Alright, we'll pause the camera for now. I'll clean that, rod that out a little bit more with another bristle out of the wire brush and see if we can make any more headway. And just keep heating it up and tapping it and hopefully get everything broke loose and cleaned out pretty soon. Okay, we blew air through from this end, coming through that little tube down there. We used a blowgun with a rubber tip, blew backwards through there. We've gotten dirt and debris out going both directions. And when I take that tube out of the vise now and shake it, I can hear the check valve rattling around a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit of penetrating oil in there and use air pressure to push that through, and then a little bit of brake parts cleaner again just to try to get everything cleaned out of there good, and then we'll reassemble the pump and see if it seems like it's going to work. Okay, well, I'm going to reassemble this and we'll see if it works. I don't know if you can hear the check valve in there on the camera, especially since we got this noisy 200A lantern sitting over there screaming the whole time. But we'll throw this back together now, tighten it down good, and reassemble the pump, and then we'll see if we can pump some pressure in there and see if that check valve holds. I feel like that is as tight as it was when I took it out. So we'll have to check for leaks around there. After I get a little bit of pressure in it, maybe I'll get some glass cleaner or something to spray on there and see if we see any bubbles coming out. I also have not had this going with its correct cap on there, but the gasket of the cap looks pretty good, so we'll have to check and see if that holds pressure too. Alright, first we got to put the stem back in there that goes down the middle. That stem works like a needle valve, and they call that a positive shutoff, so that you know that you can't have any fuel leaking back past the, or any air pressure leaking back past the check valve. That leather looks kind of dry. It was soaked in oil, but then it was sitting in carburetor cleaner when I brought it out here that was already in that tube, so I'll oil that up once I get it started back in there. Put a little squirt of oil in there for it. let's see. It feels like it's pumping pressure. I can feel resistance, so it's building some pressure in there. And an easy way to tell if your check valve is holding is to hold your thumb over there and see if if this stem was, the air pressure was pushing that stem and making it creep up, then you know that the check valve is not holding, but it's not trying to do that at all. So I think we're building pressure in there just fine. We'll pop the cap off of it, see if we hear it hiss. Oh heck yeah, it built up pressure good.
Yes.
That's perfect. Our pump is repaired. One of these days, I'm gonna have to take this generator out of here. The nut that holds the generator on is completely gone. It's rusted away to where it's completely gone. So if the generator ever plugs up on this, the only way I'm going to get it out is just by wiggling the generator and breaking up all that rust that's holding it in there. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to get that generator out in one piece, but if I can, I've got another nut that I can put back on there to replace it. But for right now, I'm not going to worry about that. The generator works fine. The tip's not plugged up on it.
Need a mantle.
So I'm going to put a new mantle on here and we'll fire this thing up. Alright, the second mantle that was on there and still hanging in there had a hole in it, so I pulled both of them off of there. I'm going to pump this up and check for leaks around where we put that back together, and check to make sure the cap's not leaking bad before I tie these new mantles on here and burn them in. And then we'll fire this thing up. Spray a little glass cleaner around the union where those two go together.
Pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, the glass cleaner has bubbles in it, but I don't see,
It's not making any
yeah, don't see any bubbles coming out around that pump assembly. I'll spray a bunch over here and see if we're getting anything around the cap.
Looks good.
Yeah, same thing. You get bubbles in the glass cleaner, but you would see bubbles, like a lot of them coming out in one spot around the cap or around the vent hole of the cap or something. And I don't see anything leaking there, so I think we're good. I'll probably go ahead and replace the cap gasket in it anyway, but I don't need to do it right now before we can see if we can get it lit back up. Okay, we'll give those a few seconds to burn in a little bit more, and then we'll crack the fuel valve open and see if this will light up. I've had this one burning before. Like I said, I used a Amish style fuel cap on it and I've had it going before, but I've moved around, jostled around a lot trying to get that pump working. So hopefully I haven't picked up a chunk of debris into the generator, because like I said, if that generator's got to come off, that's going to be a job for sure trying to get that out of there, since that nut is just completely rusted away. Alright, I mentioned this in the last video. I put a little comment down in the video, but I just wanted to let everybody know we're lighting these lanterns up in Dad's shop, but we've lit hundreds of lanterns over the years, And I've had this one going before, and you'll see when it is going in the video, it definitely flares up when you first light it. But we have a fire extinguisher right there, 3 feet away from our welding bench. So if you're working on these lanterns in your shop or in your home, if it's one you're not familiar with, I wouldn't suggest lighting it inside. And always make sure you have a fire extinguisher nearby. Come on, quit flaring up. They always seem like they burn outside the mantles for the first couple minutes until those mantles get burned in good. But one of these days the tip will get plugged on that generator and I'll have to tear it apart. But for right now, it's burning and working just fine. This is another one that I'm going to have to look for a better chimney for. Poor old thing is crusty and just about to break into 2 pieces. But it'll work for now.